Psalm 105, verses 4 and 5 say, "Look to the Lord in His strength. Seek His face always, and remember the wonderful things He has done." How are you remembering the wonderful things God has done in your life? One reason I enjoy journaling is to see God's faithfulness and His answers to prayer. We know that journaling is more of a principle than it is a command, like prayer. Prayer, He commands us to pray. But writing is kind of a personal preference, but there are biblical principles to help support the reasons and the purposes that journaling can be such a healthy habit. Think about God. God is an author, He says, that He writes. He's written down all our days. They've been ordained for us in Psalm 139. He keeps a record, a list of our tears. So God writes to give us, to communicate with us, His love. He had Moses write down the 10 Commandments to give us instruction, to give us guidance in our lives for our own good. And when we live out His instruction by His standards, life works. So it's for our own protection and His communication of love to us. So God is an author as well. And there are many stories in the Bible where the Israelites had great victories, and God asked for Moses to write those down as something to be remembered for the next generation, to remember God's faithfulness and His victories through those who sought Him and lived for Him. Is what God says to you important enough to write it down? In Exodus chapter 16, God commands the Israelites, because they were grumbling and complaining out in the desert that they didn't have anything to eat. He commands them to go out. He says, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you." The people are to go out each day and gather enough bread for that day. He says, "In the morning you will see the glory of the Lord." God rained down the manna for the Israelites as a physical example of our spiritual need, that we need to go out, and as they gather the bread, we also need to gather God's daily bread to meet our needs. It's God's grace for our journey, His provision of Himself for each of our daily needs. So it's a daily habit that we need to choose to spend time with God. And as we write down the way that He's provided for us, our faith is strengthened and we are built. Sometimes what we write down is to give other people that we meet during our day, to help encourage them in this journey of life.